One Piece is 20 years old now. So I wanted to do something special to commemorate that. I wanted to just have a one-on-one talk between me and you, listener, about why I love One Piece and why it's so special. This is going to be off the cuff. This is not scripted. I'm going to try and avoid editing as much as possible because I really want this to feel like just you and me talking about one of the greatest series that's ever been made. It's incredible to think that One Piece is 20 now. Like, when I first started reading One Piece, it was in a copy of Jump that my uncle brought back from Japan with him when he was stationed over there. And it was, I think, issue 3 or 4 maybe. Luffy was still dealing with all the stuff with Buggy around that time. And then I didn't hear about One Piece again until the 4Kids dub, like so many others of us. And I watched the 4Kids dub and got through all the stuff with Kuro and all the stuff with Ussop and into the stuff with Sanji and the Baratie with that really strange voice decision for Sanji. And even as bad as that dub was, I still loved the way these characters were designed. I still loved the way they looked, the way they acted. There definitely were some problems with the 4Kids dub. I'm not even going to try and defend that, but it's what originally made me fall in love with One Piece, really. And I had to give it some props for that. And then I think I started watching the sub. I started watching the sub around Water 7 Ian's Lobby, which is still one of my favorite arcs. Even separate from the nostalgia, that arc is so good. And after I saw that, I started, reading the volumes, reading the manga. I purchased the episode of Alabasta and watched that movie, and it's a good movie. The Alabasta arc definitely has some problems as well, but, everything does, right? All that said, 2.5 minutes before we even really get started in this video, just talking about how I got into One Piece. When I started reading the manga, and I started at chapter 1, and started working my way through, I could not believe how good it was. By that time, I'd already seen a lot of Naruto, and I'd started to fall off of Naruto, and I'd started to see a lot of Bleach, and I'd bounced real hard off the bounce arc in Bleach. And I remember reading the chapter where Luffy meets Zoro, and Zoro is captured by the Marines, and the little girl brings Zoro the food that she's made, the rice ball that she's made, and the Marines crush it into the ground. Helmeppo does, and Luffy goes over there to get Zoro because he wants to recruit Zoro to his crew, and Zoro's like, "Hey, can you pick that up?" And Zoro says, "I'm gonna eat it because she put so much work into it." And I was hooked right then. I'm in. Let's go. I love this character. Let's go. And over the years, meeting all the crew members, including our newest crew member, seeing all of the different things that the Straw Hats have gone through, One Piece is such an inspiring story to me of these characters that refuse to give up, even when things get really bad, like we see in the Marineford arc. Things get real bad. And by the way, I should have mentioned it sooner. There's going to be full spoilers for all of One Piece in this. If you have not read One Piece yet, this is your chance. Go read all of it and then come back to this video because it's super worth it. But what makes One Piece special? What sets it apart from all of these other shonen? Because there's a lot of shonen. And there's a lot of good shonen. But what makes One Piece special? Well, to me personally, what makes One Piece special is the characters. The music in the anime is great. The action in both the anime and the manga are great. But these characters, they're so different. They're crazy and kooky and weird. But they've also all gone through these terrible experiences, and they continue to smile afterwards. They continue to have fun and laugh and have a good time. When you get into some of those characters' backstories, man, you get into Robin's, and you get into Franky's, and you get into Brook's, and Chopper's. I mean, they all have bad backstories. Like, it's all rough. This world is very quickly proven to you to be a very difficult place to live and that people are just eking out an existence and trying to find joy in it. And that hits home. Like, it hits at a deep level where the world that we live in is difficult to live in. Things aren't always the way that they seem, but these characters just continue to smile and continue to stand up and deal with everything that's given to them. I think the best example is in Thriller Bark, where they've beaten Moria. Moria's beaten. He's done. They beat ours. They beat Moria. They've won. Everything's solid. Everything's great. And then Kuma shows up. And Kuma is going to take Luffy's head. And it is just this moment where they've been through so much. There's no way they could deal with anything else. But here Zoro and Sanji fight, basically, over who's going to get to die instead of Luffy. And then, of course, Zoro knocks Sanji out and survives the pain. He does not die. But it's just this great moment showing that these characters will not back down. Another great moment for that is in Enies Lobby, when Luffy fights Rob Lucci and refuses to go down. He refuses to let his family down. And I know power of friendship is a big thing in Shonen. It's very popular in things like Fairy Tail and Black Clover. But in One Piece, it never feels really cheap. When Luffy refuses to go down, you hear everybody shouting for him not to give up, and even Ussop yelling out to him not to give up. And Luffy just keeps putting his foot down every time, refusing to go down, fighting to the point where he's almost unconscious. And it just... That's another big thing, too. When you compare One Piece to a lot of other shonen, especially the two that it ran against at the time, you look at Luffy versus Naruto and Ichigo. Naruto had the Nine-Tails Fox inside him, that when things got too bad, he was able to pull on that power. Ichigo had the Hollow Ichigo, he had Zangetsu, he had the Visored stuff, he had the, what's it called? The Fullbring, all that buried deep inside him that he was able to draw on. Luffy doesn't have that. Luffy has a base power, and what he does with that power and how he uses that power is what makes it so powerful. And in my opinion, that's how you should do a power system. It's the reason why Gon in Hunter x Hunter is able to do the things that he does towards the end of that series, is because he's following the rules of the power system and is just continuing on with that. And you see that over and over and over and over and over again in One Piece. You see people with string powers, the power to control string, being one of the most deadly enemies they ever have to face. Just everything about this show. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are some bad moments. A couple of those filler arcs in the anime are really bad. And even in the manga, Dressrosa goes on for a long time. But it needed to be able to set up what's coming with the Straw Hat Grand Fleet. I'm rambling, and I'm aware that I'm rambling. But there's no way I could have a single video that encompasses everything I love about One Piece without it being hours upon hours upon hours. So instead what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about each of the characters. Luffy is amazing. He is the captain of the ship. He asks anything that he thinks looks cool and different to join the crew, no matter what. He refuses to let himself lose if it means that his crew is going to be in trouble. He'll do anything to protect them. He's headstrong. He's avaricious in that he's always hungry. He doesn't know when to quit. He's a little stupid. He makes some bad calls sometimes. But he's a good captain. And he's the kind of captain that you want to be able to rely on. After Luffy, of course, is Zoro. Zoro is dependable and strong and 100% loyal to Luffy all the way. Nothing will shake that loyalty for Zoro. Except for Luffy maybe doing something unimaginable, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. Zoro is the first mate, and he does a great job of it, as we see in Water 7 with Ussop. Zoro his backstory is sad. It's real tragic, I would say, more than sad, in that he had a rival. He had somebody he could depend on and also a friend. And she falls down a set of stairs. It's not even like she doesn't die in battle. She doesn't like lose valiantly in the face of an oncoming enemy. She falls down a set of stairs. And Zoro decides he's going to be the best swordsman for both of them. And we see that in the Baratie arc where he loses to Mihawk and tells Luffy that he's never going to lose again. And he holds up to that. Every time he's in a fight that it looks like he's going to lose, he draws on that strength of that promise, not just to Kuina, but also to Luffy. Zoro is hands down physically the strongest of the crew. He's training all the time when he's not sleeping or drinking. And of course you have just the little gags of he has a terrible sense of direction. It's great. I love everything about Zoro. If not for Sanji, he'd be my favorite Straw Hat. But Sanji exists, so, you know. Next up is Ussop. When I first saw Ussop, I expected Ussop to be this... I don't know, I expected Ussop to be the gag character, I guess. And to a point he is, but there's a difference. For instance, in Alabasta, when they start bad-mouthing, when the Broke Works members start bad-mouthing Luffy, Ussop and Chopper fight back. And Ussop uses every single bit of his skill to fight back. He's the coward who somehow always finds the strength to stand up. In Eames Lobby, he's the one who shoots the flag as Soga King, even though he knows that that means they're declaring war on the world government. He doesn't care because one of his crewmates is in trouble. And then later on we see in Dressrosa where he's the only one that can do this. He's the only one that can take down Sugar. And he's scared. Of course he's scared. They're facing the toughest enemy they've ever fought before. But still, Ussop finds it within himself to stand up and fight for the sake of the crew. I love Usopp so much, man. Usopp's great. Usopp's amazing. And the whole story with him and Kaya and Captain Kuro and all that, I love that arc so much. It's a little small, tiny part of the East Blue arc, but I love it so much. Next up, of course, is my boy, Sanji. My favorite character in the entire series. Sanji's great. I mean, I feel like I say that about everybody, but Sanji is amazing. I love everything about Sanji. Between his backstory, especially what we found lately with the stuff with the Vinsmokes, but between that and how he became Zeph's surrogate son, the way that he is a chef, and so he refuses to fight with his hands, even though there are plenty of times where he could probably fight a lot better with his hands, he refuses to. He doesn't want to mess up his hands because he needs them to cook. So instead, he uses his feet. The amount of times that Sanji has pulled through for the crew astounds me. In Alabasta as Mr. Prince, in Eames Lobby going after the key. Sanji is so integral to the crew, and you really feel that during Dressrosa, where Sanji leaves with Nami and the rest of the crew that doesn't stay with Luffy. There are so many times where Sanji would have been helpful there, and then you go into the Zou arc, and Sanji leaves again, because he has to protect the crew. And so now you have the Retrieve Sanji arc, basically, in the Big Mom arc, and the Whole Cake Island arc, I guess? I don't know. Sanji is so interesting as a character. He's your stereotypical, I love every woman that has legs, as long as she's beautiful. I love her. I'll do anything for her. But at the same time, you couple that with his fierce desire to protect his crewmates, his fierce desire to find his dream, to find the All Blue, and to be able to be the best chef in the world, basically. He wants it so badly that sometimes it's hard to remember things like, Zoro's a swordsman, so obviously he wants to be the greatest swordsman in the world, and Luffy wants to be king of the pirates, yeah. But a lot of the Straw Hats' dreams get kind of easy to forget, because they don't talk about them very often. But something about the way that Sanji cooks, And this could just be me, I'll freely admit it. Something about the way he cooks reminds me every time that he wants to find the All Blue. We have some great fights with him. We have some really sad moments with him. And I just can't wait to see what else we get. We also had an amazing fight between him and Luffy in Whole Cake Island. And I just can't wait to see what comes next. So next up is Nami. And Nami's in a weird place right now because I really like Nami. But she hasn't got to do much lately. Like, she's doing things, don't get me wrong. It just feels like everything's been happening around her lately. There have been some really good moments in Whole Cake Island. But before that, she didn't really do that much in Fishman Island arc. She was important in Zoe for sure, but she wasn't in Dressrosa really. And then before that, again, Fishman Island wasn't much. Then we had the time skip, and I'm looking for some great Nami moments to come. There's already been some great reactions, of course, from her with she was, ace in the hole helping beat Cracker, and then her anger at Sanji, and then the smile that she has when Sanji's carrying her away after everything's been resolved. I want to see more of Nami, because when it comes down to it, Nami's arc is still one of my favorites. Arlong Park, man, the moment when Nami decides that she's done with Arlong, she's finally fed up with all his garbage, and starts stabbing the tattoo on her shoulder. Every time, I'm getting emotional now thinking about it, because every time it gets me. Luffy walks by and puts the hat on her head, and she says, "Luffy, save me." And then Luffy, Ussop, and Zoro and Sanji have that awesome walk to Arlong Park, and it just, every time. Every time. Man, when you find out the stuff with her and Belmare, and how she was stealing from all these different pirates to, get enough money to try and buy back her village. I love Nami, man. It feels like lately she's been relegated to more of a supporting role, whereas before she was a bit more active. So I'm looking forward to some more Nami for sure. Next up is Chopper. I love Chopper so much. Again, I'm just gushing about these characters, but these characters mean a lot to me because of all that they've been through and all that I've witnessed them go through. It's like I've been there with them this whole time. And Chopper, man, the whole backstory with Chopper is my personal favorite of the crew. Everything that happens with Dr. Hiruduke and Chopper being cast out and all the stuff with Dalton. And I know it's not fair to give all that to Chopper because Dalton and Dr. Hiruduke are their own characters, but he's in the middle of all that. And when he finally meets Luffy, and Luffy saves Dr. Hiruduke's flag, and Chopper fights back, and Luffy tells him that he doesn't care that he's a monster. Man, every time, just right in the heart. And so, when Chopper says that he doesn't mind becoming a monster if it's for Luffy's sake, man, it's so good. Oh, I love Chopper. Looking forward to some more Chopper in the upcoming arcs, for sure. Got to see a good fight with him. We haven't had one of those in a little while. So next up is Robin. And Robin is a really interesting character, in my opinion. Started out as a villain. Became a hero, basically. Not a hero, but a part of the crew. Part of the family. And everything to do with Robin, She just has this whole different air to her than the rest of the Straw Hats. She's extremely deadly, and she was an assassin. But yet she smiles, and her smile is more believable than Zoro's smile, It's really interesting when you get into her backstory and how they were historians, and you get into her dream, and how, she wants to be able to read all the poneglyphs. And you have this perfect situation where it seems like maybe she's so reserved because she doesn't think it can be true how perfect this is. Because for a long time, Robin felt like she should have died on Ohara with the rest of the scientists and historians. And with Jaguar D. Sol. And you get into all that with her and realize just how terrible her life has been up until the point where she met Luffy and the others. You get her then captured by the world government, and the Straw Hats attack, basically fight the world government to get her back. And her declaration of how I want to live. For the first time, she admitted to herself that she didn't want to die. Man, Robin's a great character. Then there's Franky. Franky is this lovable goofball who, I don't even know how to put it into words. He has so much on his back, so many scars that he carries of all the terrible things that happened with Tom and with the Franky family just trying to eke out a living in Water 7 and everything going into Ian's lobby. But he's still so upbeat. And he's the cool and collected guy until there's a chance to do something crazy, and then he's doing it. And his fight with Senor Pink in Dressrosa is one of my favorite fights in the entire series. Because Franky, even though he finds in Senor Pink a kindred spirit and comes to understand him so well, he still finishes the fight. They still have to work this out like men. Like real men, as they would say, to be able to resolve this. Man, Franky is just like a giant tough teddy bear in a really weird way that only wears a Speedo and likes to yell super a lot. Brook. Brook has, next to Chopper, the saddest backstory in my opinion. Just the moment where Brook is playing the piano and slowly the rest of the Rumbar Pirates are dying around him, just dropping, one by one, while he continues to sing, fully knowing that once he dies, he's coming back and will be alone. The moment where Luffy finds him, and you have Brook showing off some of the stuff that he can do, and the stuff that he can do is just the stuff he's been doing by himself all this time. You have Brook having lost his shadow, unable to leave Thriller Bark, sailing around the outskirts, just basically waiting, because what else can he do? And then Luffy and the crew show up, and he helps them fight back, and they beat Gecko Moria, and they get Brook's shadow back, and Luffy's like, hey, join our crew. And Brook's like, of course. And then the stuff that he's done since, man, Yahatsugiri is such a cool attack already, but then the stuff that Brook does when he fights Big Mom, I mean, he doesn't really fight, but he stands up to Big Mom, basically calls her young lady, and then is captured, gets rescued, breaks the picture of Mother Carmel, copies the poneglyph. Like, Brook has been just on a roll lately, and I can't wait to see what else he does. I love Brook, and every time there's a skull joke, man. His signature laugh, the music motif, I'm so happy Brook's on the crew. And finally, we have Jimbei. Brand new member, just joined. Jimbei's cool. I love Jimbei. The Fishman Karate, the fact that he's basically a mob boss for, like, the Yakuza. Just, Jimbei is such a cool character, and I can't wait to learn more about him. He's already done some really cool stuff, like helping Luffy break out of Impel Down. All the stuff with Ian's Lobby, or not Ian's Lobby. That'd be a whole different arc if Jimbei was there. All the stuff with Marineford and the Great War. Everything already on Whole Cake. The fact that Big Mom's like, life or treat. And he's like, nah, I ain't gonna do it. And just like leaves. I love Jimbei so much. We all expected Jimbei to like lose a leg or something. And Jimbei's just like, no, that's stupid. Why would I do that? Oh, Jimbei's so cool. So having finished up my favorite things about each of the main characters, I want to talk a little about some of the best fights, some of the best arcs, and some of the best villains before we wrap this up. Some of the best fights, in my opinion, are definitely Luffy versus Inaru. Sanji versus Mr. 2, Bon Clay. Oh man, the moment Bon Clay, man. Oh, Bon Clay, why are you so good? Luffy versus Rob Lucci. Zoro versus Das Bones. Luffy versus Crocodile. Just about all the fights in East Lobby, which I know that's not fair when talking about favorite fights, but those are some great fights. Zoro versus Ryuma. There's just so many really cool fights in this series. I actually really love Luffy versus Bellamy, too. It's just one punch. That's all it takes. Cue the One Punch Man intro. But Luffy just decks Bellamy, and he's done. It's over. What we get to see of Aokiji fighting is always really cool. When it comes to the fights in One Piece, like I talked about earlier, even the weirdest powers can be super powerful for an actual battle. But nothing ever feels OP, I guess you could say, because everything has a hard counter. Like, Inaru is incredibly powerful, but he can't hurt Luffy. Fujitori's meteors are crazy good, but Caesar Clown would be fine fighting him. And then, of course, you have the balance of, well, if they get hit with Sea Stone, or if they fall into the water, they're done. It's over, you know? You have stuff like Law's powers, which, as long as you're inside his radius, the Ope Ope no Mi is crazy good. But if you're outside his radius, Ussop could take him down. And I love that so much about these fights, where it becomes... It's like a cool mix of a regular shonen and JoJo, where you need to use your powers in a cool, interesting way, but you also have to, be strong with them. You have to have done work with them. You can't just come up off the streets. Like, Frieza, just rank and file somebody who never trades and just has innate power, would not be really good in this world. Because these people not only have their abilities, they also have to learn how to use them. And I love that. And they're always coming up with new creative ways to use them. Like Bartolomeo with his barriers, man. Just, oh, so good. When it comes to arcs, I think the best arcs in the entire series are the original East Blue arc, for sure. That arc is amazing. And that's cheating. I'm aware. That's super cheating. Because that's including the first arc, the Buggy arc, the Arlong Park arc, the Captain Kuro arc, the Barati arc. That's 5 arcs in one. I'm aware. I'll cheat. It's fine. Pirate Steel, I can cheat on this one. Is that fair? I don't know. We're going to call it fair. Eames Lobby, Water 7. Some of the best arcs in all of anime, in my opinion. I actually really like the Zoe arc, short as it was. I thought that was a really solid arc. I'm a big fan of Alabasta, despite the problems with stuff like Pell and the pacing. I think Skypiea has worse pacing problems, but I really enjoy quite a bit of Skypiea. And then, man, Thriller Bark. Thriller Bark is crazy good. If not for Eames Lobby and everything around there, Thriller Bark would probably be my favorite. And then, of course, there's Drum Island. If we're not going to include it in the original East Blue, Drum Island's... Man, everything with Dalton and Dr. Hiroruk... Oh, I talked about it earlier with Chopper. I'm going to stop. We'll circular logic, we'll get right back to what we were talking about before if I don't stop. When it comes to villains, One Piece has Crocodile, One Piece has Blackbeard, One Piece has Buggy, and Buggy, it's kind of weird in that Buggy technically shouldn't be considered a great villain alongside people like Crocodile and Blackbeard, and yet Buggy is currently a Shichibukai. You have people like Kaido and Big Mom, like Doflamingo. And then here's Buggy. Buggy's just, being Buggy. Captain Buggy just tricking everybody into thinking he's way more powerful than he actually is. Oh. It's little things like that I think set One Piece apart. In that... And it's really hard to put this into words. And that's why I wanted this video to be off the cuff, so you guys could hear me struggle trying to make it clear. But One Piece does so many things, and it's never afraid to change up the formula a little. We started out as a basic adventure, going from island to island with the logs and the poses and just trying to, the log pose that is, just trying to get from island to island to get more clues about where One Piece is and gathering crew members as we go. And then at some point, Luffy is fighting the world government. Luffy is in a desert, fighting against a Sandman. Luffy is in the sky on a cloud islands, fighting against a man who literally calls himself a god. Luffy is in a prison, planning a prison break. And then, next thing you know, we're on an island full of people that have been turned into toys, led by an evil mob boss. And then now, we're on an island made out of cake, led by a literal cannibal. It's like One Piece goes places that most shonen would never dare to go. And I see a lot of people look at One Piece and they go, oh, that looks kind of childish. I just talked about a literal cannibal in One Piece. Like, it's crazy where Oda goes with this story and how dark it can be sometimes. It just has some of the best storytelling, some of the best characters, some of the best moments, some of the best action that I've ever seen in a manga, and it continues to impress almost every arc. There are some stinkers. I'll freely admit, there are some stinkers. Especially in the anime with the filler arcs. But if you haven't seen One Piece and you set through all these spoilers, you absolutely should. I want to close out with my favorite moment. And my favorite moment in the entirety of One Piece is kind of unfair. Because it's relatively recent. But my favorite moment in One Piece is when Sabo finds out that Ace is dead. Because the moment's a flashback where Luffy has met Sabo again, and Sabo's talking about what happened and how he remembered Luffy and Ace. And the way that Sabo finds out is not, it's not Ghost Ace putting his hand on Sabo's shoulder and saying, hey, I'm dead, my will's passed on to you. It's not a gust of wind blowing by that makes him realize something's changed. Sabo picks up the newspaper. And he's heard the name Fire Fist Ace before. He absolutely must have. He's heard the name Straw Hat Luffy before as well. He had to have. But it didn't mean anything till he saw a picture. And he sees this picture of Ace. And it all comes back to him. In his amnesia from the almost death that he had that Dragon saved him from. It's all resolved. It's all gone. All his memories come back for him to realize that his brother has just died. And the sheer pain on his face as he throws that paper away and yells out to the sky in the manga, it gets me every time, man. It's such a good moment. Because that emotion is so real. It's like it's bleeding through the page to you. The regret and the guilt that Sabo knows if he had remembered sooner, he could have saved Ace. But it's too late for that. Things aren't that simple. And so Sabo decides he has to go and find Luffy and be able to be there for him at least. And that's not the only good moment. There's some other really great moments, such as Corazon hanging on so that Law can be silent just a little bit longer. Man, that moment where Franky gets run over by the train to try and stop Tom while calling out to the train, hoping that it will listen and change its mind because it was made by Tom too. There are so many great moments in One Piece, but the moment where Sabo finds out about Ace is still my favorite moment in the entire show. What else is there to say about One Piece? I've gone on for almost 45 minutes now. I love One Piece. The fact that it has to eventually end one day, that day is going to be one of the saddest days of my life. And I know that sounds like it's just a manga. What are you talking about? But One Piece is a journey. It's an adventure that I've been on since I was a child. One Piece is 7 years younger than me. And the more I think about that, the more I realize that Oda's comment about these characters growing up with us, that he wanted it to feel like these were our friends from a long time ago that we've continued to grow with and adventure with. That's what it feels like. I mean, obviously these characters aren't real people. I don't get up in the morning and try to talk to Luffy. But I understand these characters in a way that I don't understand a lot of other manga characters. And it's because I've seen them grow. I've seen them change. I've seen the little small things as they've got further and further along their journey. The moments that have turned Ussop in to this great warrior of the sea that he's trying to become. The things that have intervened in Robin's life to turn her from this life of crime. Oh, I guess she's still technically in a life of crime, but from this life of assassination and bounty hunting into this life of joy that she currently has. I was there reading it when Zoro put his hands into the bubble to try and take all Luffy's pain so that Luffy wouldn't be killed. You know, I was there when Sanji reveals everything to Reiju that's happened to him. And the moment when Zeph eats his leg so that Sanji has food to eat. The moment that Nami stabs her shoulder, when Chopper declares to the entire world that he'll become a monster if he has to, for Luffy's sake. When Franky... when Franky... I'm getting emotional. I was there when all these things happened. When Brook played on the top of the Thousand Sunny to Laboon. When Franky lost all his skin and had to rebuild himself. When the whole crew got separated at Shabati Archipelago. I was there. And when Luffy put his straw hat down on the rock to go train with Raleigh, I was there. And it just makes it mean so much more to me to see these characters grow and change and become who they are, that I have been there this whole journey. And hopefully I'll be there when it ends. To see whatever the heck the One Piece really is. But no matter what it is, to get to see the last steps of this journey that I started on so long ago. I'm going to stop here because I could just go about why One Piece means so much to me. But if you guys want to hear me gush about any other anime series, drop us an email, drop a comment, check out our website and comment there. Let me know how you feel about One Piece. Let me know if it means as much to you as it does to me. Or if you think I'm crazy and I'm getting way too emotional talking about an anime and manga series, that there's no way these characters could be that important. I want to hear that opinion too. We're almost done with One Piece now. It's almost the end. And I hope you'll be there with me when this crazy ride finally stops. But I hope we still have a few more years at least before we reach the end of this journey. As always, I've been Trey. And always remember to enjoy the full spectrum that life has to offer.